So friends, if you ever wondered why the constitutional guarantee of due process of law is so important, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Those words, that guarantee, is so important because it's designed to prohibit the federal government, prohibit the Trump administration from doing what it just did to a young man named Kilmer Arbrego Garcia. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, remember when Donald Trump said he would terminate the Constitution? Well, for anybody who voted for him, you should have believed him. Because now, looks like he's putting his money where his mouth is, and he's starting with the due process clause of the Fifth Amendment. Let's start with the new reporting. This from NBC News. A man was sent to El Salvador due to administrative error despite protected legal status, filings show. And that article begins, the United States government accidentally deported a man to El Salvador due to an administrative error, landing him in a notorious mega jail and leaving him stuck there in legal limbo, according to legal papers filed on Monday. Kilmer Arbrego Garcia came to the U.S. in 2011 from El Salvador and is a legal resident, protected by a 2019 court order that prevented him from being sent back to his home country. But in court papers filed Monday, the government, that is the Trump administration, admitted that on March 15, although ICE was aware of his protection from removal to El Salvador, Arbrego Garcia was removed to El Salvador because of an administrative error. And friends, I'll leave it up to you as to whether you believe that claim by ICE, by the Trump administration. Oh, just an administrative error. Oh, we acknowledge there was a court order in place prohibiting us from deporting him, sending him to El Salvador. But whoops, it was an administrative error. The article continues. Garcia lives in Maryland with his wife and 5-year-old child, who is autistic and intellectually disabled. The couple both work full-time, the filing says. The incident was first reported by The Atlantic. Garcia's deportation comes as President Donald Trump's administration continues to deport hundreds of people to El Salvador, many of them from Venezuela, and almost all bound for the same maximum security terrorist confinement center known by its Spanish acronym CECOT. The deportation appears to coincide with the March 15th departure of 3 plane loads of people to El Salvador. Lawyers for some of those who were deported said they were falsely accused of gang affiliations because of their tattoos. Garcia, his wife Jennifer Vasquez Sura, and their legal team filed a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court in Maryland last week calling for Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem to ensure his return to the U.S. and for the government to stop paying El Salvador to keep him in prison. In its filing on Monday, the government said that the U.S. courts don't have jurisdiction to seek his release. And friends, in further reporting, it looks like the Trump administration is saying, and we don't really have a way to bring him back. Salvadoran government images show crowds of men with shaven heads being marched by masked guards inside the largest jail in Latin America. The government, however, alleges that Garcia was an active member of the criminal gang MS-13, citing an unidentified informant at a 2019 bond hearing. But Garcia's lawyers strenuously deny this and claim the government has never produced an iota of evidence to support this unfounded allegation. Garcia left El Salvador to escape gang violence, his lawyers said, after gangsters threatened to kill him in an attempt to extort his parents. They, the government, do not deny that they had no legal authority to send him there. And Garcia's lawyer added, there is a judicial process. They could have gone back to the judge who, in 2019, gave him an order of protection and could have asked that judge to lift that order. They, the government, didn't do that. They just put him on an airplane, Sandoval Maschenberg added. So what could have prevented this? What should have been done here? What does due process of law look like? It's not that burdensome. You know, it requires only two things: notice and opportunity to be heard. That's what the Constitution requires. Before the Trump administration can stuff you in a plane and send you to a prison in a country from which you fled because, according to your attorney, Garcia left El Salvador to escape gang violence after gangsters threatened to kill him in an attempt to extort his parents. So, friends, assuming that statement is an accurate representation of Garcia's circumstances, how do you think he's going to fare back in El Salvador in this notorious prison for terrorists? And whether or not that representation is accurate is entirely beside the point, because even the Trump administration officials acknowledged, admitted, conceded that Garcia had a court order from a judge prohibiting the government from deporting him to El Salvador. So all the Trump administration had to do was abide by those simple constitutional protections of notice and opportunity to attend, and Garcia and his lawyer could have held up that court order, that ruling from a prior judge prohibiting him from being deported to El Salvador. You know, and then he could have been back with his wife and his 5-year-old child, but the Trump administration opted not to abide by the Constitution. Going back to Donald Trump's earlier sentiment that he's just fine terminating the Constitution. Well, guess what? We're not fine with it. Garcia's not fine with it. His family's not fine with it. Nobody should be fine with it. Because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.